Perfect. Got it on my end. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Lizzy Satran, and I am conducting this interview on behalf of the Veterans Heritage Project. I am interviewing Heidi Lobstein on 2 September 2022. This is via Zoom. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Ms. Heidi, can you please tell us your full name, date of birth, branch of service, and the highest rank in which you've served?
Okay, my full name is Heidi Molina Lobstein, and dates of service were, I think, 1986, 87. I went in January, and I think I was discharged honorably in May of 87. So I was in about 18 months.
Okay.
And I was a second lieutenant. I went in for the nurse internship program.
Mhm.
They didn't have immersion programs like they do today, and that was the closest thing to it. So I went in to help develop my nursing skills. And I wanted to be a flight nurse. It was glamorous to me to be a nurse on a plane, and if we were going to go to war, I would be piecing soldiers back together again. And that was my image I had in my head of what I was going to do.
Awesome. Where did you grow up?
I grew up, actually, I was born in California, but we left when I was 2. And I was raised in Indiana, mostly early childhood in Indiana. And then we moved to Chicago area when I was in junior high school. And then I went to Purdue University, back to Indiana, back to my hometown to go to college, and went to nursing school there. And then was stationed in California. Both March Air Force Base was where the internship program was, and Edwards Air Force Base, which was my assigned duty base. So I could really sing California, Here I Come Back to Where I Started From, because that's where I was born.
How long was the internship?
Well, the internship, I think it was 6 months or something like that, 6 weeks. I can't recall exactly how long, but I know mine was extended because of what happened to me, and I wasn't able to focus and function.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't graduate with the other interns. And then I did graduate. I don't know how, but I did, and was then stationed at Edwards afterwards.
Okay. So you went to the internship already having your nursing degree?
Yes,
right?
I had it 4 years, and we were the first 4-year program going through Purdue University. Before that, they had the 2-year associate degree, and then you could go 2 more years and get your bachelor's. But this was straight 4 years, straight through. Had my bachelor's in nursing.
Okay.
A
So then was
BSN,
this
Bachelor's in Science of Nursing.
Okay. So was the internship then to learn how to be a nurse specifically for the military?
Yes. And it was to help you develop nursing skills.
Okay.
It was a skills-based nursing internship program. It wasn't a flight nursing program. That was to be later on. I would apply to flight nursing school. That never happened.
Okay.
Never got to apply to flight nursing school or anything like that.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Amazingly did make it through the internship program though.
So from March, then that's when you went to Edwards.
From March Air Force Base, right? It was a Strategic Air Command, SAC base, where I did my training. And then I was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base for my permanent assignment. Originally, I was supposed to go to Vandenberg Air Force Base in Lompoc for my assigned base, but they rerouted me to Edwards. I think something was going on with the hospital. They had closed it or something at the time, and I was then stationed at Edwards. And my reaction, I was driving through the desert and it was like going on, and it was like all desert. And I'm like, where did they send me? This is like a remote site. Yeah, and I finally hit the front gates.
That's funny. Okay. I don't know if you want to speak about your experience while you were at Marsh. It's totally up to you. No pressure either way. So
Yeah, I don't mind. I did write a book about my experience. It was like cognitive processing therapy I was going through for military sexual trauma. And I started writing about the trauma, but I couldn't stop writing. I wrote about my whole life up until that point, and then after that point, and how it affected me. And I was actually writing a sequel to the book after I lost my house in LA. And then I stopped writing the second half because I realized I didn't live through most of the chapters in the next book, because I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer and I'm still dealing with that. But I think energetically it relates to the military sexual trauma. I was actually listening to Rife frequencies for cancer, for breast cancer. And when the frequency played, like the third set played, I started having flashbacks and releasing a lot of emotion. So I think, things happen spiritually, energetically, and then they manifest physically. And I think this is part of the healing crisis, that it manifested physically as breast cancer. And now I'm able to move through that. It can be reversed, physical to energetic and spiritual, and released. And I am in the process of healing right now. That's what all these herb teas are, detoxing and everything. I'm releasing and healing. So I went in for the internship program. I didn't feel confident right after nursing school to work as a nurse. But I did in a nursing home and got some skills down initially. But I wanted to go into the internship program because they had the right idea. Hands-on, you want to learn how to put in an IV, we just put you down in the operating room and you put in IVs all day. And hands-on is how you learn nursing. That's how you learn a skill, by practicing it. So I came across country first with a friend from the Indiana area, and we went together to Shepherd Air Force Base for MIMSO, or military indoctrination for medical officers. It was not like basic training. It was a 2-week party, how to wear your uniform and salute. And I was very popular in that time. I wrote a speech and presented it. I also wrote a lot of the toasts that for our formal dinner. Cheers to Captain Hughes, who taught us to wear blues. Her jokes were fine, so lift your wine, and cheers to Captain Hughes. Well, I wrote all of the toasts, and they told me, well, that's not fair. Everyone has to write something, and everyone was sitting there scratching their heads. So what we did was divide up what I wrote in between everyone in the group. And you take poem 1, you take poem 2, and it was a team effort that way. But I went in with a real positive attitude. I was looking forward to just nursing in general, but also kind of fantasizing about being a flight nurse and how glamorous that would be. And so at Shepherd Air Force Base, from there on, I drove by myself to March Air Force Base. I remember driving through the countryside, and I'm from Indiana. I mean, I was born in California, but I grew up in Indiana, so I'm used to flat cornfields, and it was just beautiful, mountainous, hilly. It's nice. But I didn't realize, because I didn't drive more than 4 hours a day, and I didn't like really read the orders. So I didn't make a good first impression because they were saying I was AWOL when I arrived because I was so much later than they had expected. I guess they expected me to drive 13, 14 hours a day. And I like visited relatives along the way. I was like, oops, and I didn't really realize, that. So I felt like I kind of got off on not a good foot and I didn't know anybody. And then they assigned me, I was in a hotel like first couple days and had a newspaper and coffee delivered to my door. And I'm feeling like, this is the first time on my own. I'm young, I'm like 22 years old. And I was very close to my mom. And that's one of the reasons I went in was kind of like to individuate and separate and be my own individual person. So I'm feeling like an adult. They put me in my own apartment, which was in Moreno Valley, outside the gates of March Air Force Base. So I got to my apartment, my furniture and stuff hadn't arrived, and I didn't have much. I had, maybe a bed and, I had two big stuffed Arvante stuffed lions, and that was my furniture. So a lot of it, they hadn't delivered it yet, but I arrived at March Air Force Base and the hotel, and then checking in, and then assigned to housing, which was in Moreno Valley. I did not realize that it was not in a good neighborhood by the Circle K outside the gates of March Air Force Base. Moreno Valley was kind of a high crime area. Didn't know that. I was from Indiana. I didn't know that. And my focus was on, I was swimming. They had a pool in the apartment complex, no security gates or anything. And my focus was like, wow, this is January and I'm swimming outside. This is cool. And I came up the stairs, and this was maybe the second evening I was in my apartment. The door was slightly ajar. It was slightly open. I thought the wind had blown it because I wasn't used to locking my door. We didn't in Indiana. And when I walked in, everything went black. I remember hearing a crack, which was probably something hitting my head, and I was out. When I came to, there was a heavy man on top of me. I felt pain all over. I couldn't breathe. And then I passed out again. Came back to maybe a few hours later. Had a head injury because everything I remember was out of focus. So I probably had a concussion. And when I came to, it was pitch black. It was night. I was terrified. I don't even know. It's beyond terrified that they might come back. So I went to lock the door, put the chair, cleaned up. It was like in a frenzy of cleaning up. There was blood, motor oil. I really ruined the carpet in the apartment because I used bleach, and just I got through that. I think it was the weekend. I think it was a Friday. Hid in the closet most of the weekend, fearful, shaking. And then kind of came around, and my mom had been calling me. I didn't answer the messages, and I didn't really know anyone. So nobody would have noticed any difference or changes. But I cleaned myself up early in the morning. I think it was Monday. Must have been Monday. And, I wore long sleeves and try to hide any injury. I had a cut on my lip and a bruising on my body and cigarette burns. And I went to the internship, and I don't really remember really clearly the internship program. I remember the interns, and I wanted to be normal. I think my whole way of coping with what had happened to me was to tell myself that it didn't happen. And then later in the internship program, we learned that some people had broken into Captain Gingris's apartment, and she was also beat up and raped. And then I just suppressed everything even more because I felt so guilty that maybe it wouldn't have happened to her if I had reported it. But I didn't even know who to report it to. I mean, I don't know how I got through that period of time. I really don't. I was dissociating. Like I said, my internship program was extended because I wasn't able to focus. And that was so unlike me. I was a very good student, very sharp, got A's in nursing school. Like I said, I was very popular in Shepherd Air Force Base, when we had our training there. And I would just kind of was not there, but I got through it. I got to Edwards. And of course, during the internship program, there's mental health came and said, hey, we're here for you active duty people. And I believe that. And I had a lot of trouble sleeping and a lot of anxiety, night terror. I went to the mental health clinic there, and I wasn't able to articulate what happened to me, and I didn't know how to tell them or how to talk about it. So what I did was, I guess in the Air Force eyes, kind of crazy, because when I was a nursing student, I was a bright nursing student. I went into mental health as a nursing student to study therapeutic interaction because I was really interested in mental health. And so I had these records that I had from my mental health and, in college. And I gave them to the person, wanting somehow to this all be straightened out and that she could help me figure things out. And those records were used against me. They said I was fraudulent. I had a pre-existing mental health condition that I didn't tell them about. And they discharged me, and they threatened that if I didn't resign my commission, that I would be dishonorably discharged. So I was over a barrel. I had to resign my commission. It took them, quite a long time. I was pulled off the floor, sent on psych evals. No one ever asked me, or ever got to the root of the problem. I was very defensive and I regressed. I was 22, and I mean, my family was on the dysfunctional side. My dad was a Holocaust survivor, and we didn't communicate about feelings really well in my family. So, I didn't, I felt very defensive on the defense. And I understand, the military, they're trying to figure things out, but basically they labeled me crazy woman, character disorder, and basically lied on my DD 214 because they said I had a substandard performance of duty, which was not true. I actually, even though I was out of it, my performance was above standard throughout the internship program. And whenever I was on the floor, my performance was above standard. It wasn't substandard. So that was not the reason for discharge. But they felt, crazy lady. And actually, when I was at Edwards Air Force Base, I don't know which is more traumatic, but what happened was that they had been paying me to live off base, which was true at March Air Force Base. But I was living on the base at Edwards Air Force Base. So there was a discrepancy in my pay, which I didn't know. It was all in code. I didn't know what the codes meant. And they figured this out as they were discharging me. They basically held me on the base until this debt that was created by their mistake was paid back, which left me financially devastated. So I got soup cans from the chaplain from the little church there. And I also went dating, free meal, dinner, and I dated maybe 12 to 15 different guys, just going out with guys, getting free dinner. And of course, 2 of them were rapists. And at the time, I'm just like, oh, they took advantage of me, and I was so, I didn't maybe articulate no. I mean, I just kind of tuned out. I just wasn't there. But one, I remember was he came to pick me up for dinner, and it was a rape. Even though at the time I just told myself he took advantage of me. And then the second one, it was like a 4th of July event, and he put ice down my shirt and someone else's shirt, and then I put ice down his pants. We were like goofing around. This is at the officers club, and he held my head under the water in the ice chest because he was pissed off. And then I went back to his apartment to get a t-shirt, because I was all wet. And then he raped me. And after he raped me, he said, nobody's going to believe you. You're a crazy woman. And I believed him that I am a crazy woman and I'm being discharged. So nobody's going to believe me. So I didn't report those either. And in my mind, they just took advantage of me. I couldn't articulate the word rape at that time. So those were date rapes that I experienced. And when I finally got out, I went on an interview in my uniform down to UCLA, the Neuropsychiatric Hospital, NPI, which is now the Resnick Hospital, which later in my life I taught nursing students there. And I was hired, but they waited a good 6-8 months for me to come until this debt that was created was paid back. So I started working. My first real nursing job after the Air Force was psychiatric nursing. And I worked in geropsych, Alzheimer's dementia unit. And life moved on. I was very focused on nursing and taking care of other people, but I had my own mental health issues. I mean, I had mood swings. I got depressed and suicidal. Never really connecting the dots of why, acting out. And then eventually UCLA, I worked there like, I think like 10 years, 8 years, something like that, a good long time. And I was labeled by that point bipolar and put on medication. And after, I think, with the mood fluctuations, kind of reinforced my belief that I'm a crazy woman. I was fired from UCLA for yelling at a coworker. She triggered everybody, but I reacted. And it's understandable I reacted because I was repressing a lot of emotion that just wasn't being expressed. And I immediately got a job, and I was still working across the street part-time with Dr. Gitlin in the schizophrenic aftercare clinic. And none of my reasons for being fired were nursing, not working as properly as a nurse, not getting my patients taken care of. I was very focused on patient care and was a good nurse. But after I was working at UCLA and I still worked with Dr. Gitlin, I was doing home care for a while. And I worked, I'm going to turn this off here. I worked as home care, and then I worked the county jail, which is very interesting. I had some experiences there that were, intense. One of the inmates soaped themselves up with soap in the shower, came out naked, and threatened to jump off the tier of the balcony, which was a dumb design for a jail. And I had rapport with her, and I said, hey, I'm not going to talk you out of it. I just want to come up and keep you company. Is that okay? So I was up there 2 hours with her. At some point, she kind of lunged forward. All the other inmates were yelling, jump, jump, jump. And I said, you don't have to prove anything to those idiots. And she kind of leaned back, and I asked her about her daughter, who was 3 years old. And after about 2 hours of being up there naked, she got cold and decided to come down. So, it was quite a different experience working at the jail. A lot of things I saw that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. And then I worked at Step Up on Second. No, Step Up on Second was before the jail. Step Up on Second was with the mentally ill and homeless. Then at the jail, and then Brotman, but all in psych. I worked 30 years in psych. Finally, I worked at the VA for about 12 years or so in mental health in the hospital, and then later in the domiciliary. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working mental health. I had a lot of compassion. I could connect with the patients. But in 2012, they started talking about military sexual trauma. And I was heavily medicated. I gained over 100 pounds because of toxicity of the medication. And at that point, I had a lot of flashbacks, and I couldn't keep repressing it. So I sought out treatment at the VA. They were advertising, yeah, we can treat military sexual trauma. It took a while to find Dr. Himmelfarb in the West Los Angeles VA. They're well hidden. The MST group was well hidden. They didn't, it wasn't easy to find. But I started going to the group and found that I wasn't alone in this experience, this kind of experience. So by 2016, 2017, I decided to go into a more intense kind of treatment called cognitive processing therapy, where we wrote about the trauma that happened and processed it. And then I couldn't stop writing about it. And I wrote a book, Silence is Violence, #MeToo/military sexual trauma, published it on Amazon. And when I was going through treatment, it's a treatment that's known to make you labile, okay, which is emotionally up and down.
Mhm.
I used up all my sick days, all my leave time, and I was in human resources requesting accommodation, but I didn't have that word or the vocabulary yet. I just knew that my doctor had supposedly written a note to human resources to cut back my hours to a 4-day work week so that I could deal with the cognitive processing therapy. I got to run around in human resources. I was very frustrated. Hindsight, I now have skills. I would know what to do, just leave, right? But I had a meltdown and I said, I'll just go overdose on medication in the med room. Well, that's not was never my intent. And it was not something I actually did. What I did do was go immediately to the women's clinic and talk to the psychiatrist that I had. And they helped me de-escalate, take some breaths, and they sent me back to work. But by that time, human resources had the ball rolling. The VA police came and I was reevaluated in the ER. And that doctor said, well, come back to work tomorrow. Well, I never did get to go back to work really in patient care at the DOM. I was detailed to a transfer center for a long time. And then the VA sent me on a psych eval, which was not necessary because I had 2 therapists that were saying she can go back to work. But their psych eval was also a trigger for my PTSD because if you remember, back when I was traumatized, what the military did was send me on a psych eval. And I was defensive and regressed. And so it was a trigger for that. It just brought back all that trauma. So I didn't do well I didn't even finish the testing. It was too stressful to be sent on psych testing. So based on that testing, they fired me from the VA for my disability. Not for anything I did in nursing. And there was never a patient care issue. Just because I'm going through treatment myself, I should have been on medical leave for a little while. And then when I stabilized, come back, but never to take care of patients again is ridiculous. I've been taking care of patients for 30 years and doing a good job at it. I like my patients. So they fired me for my disability. I had a loan mod on the house, which I got way behind in again because, I was fired from my job and I couldn't make the payments. So they wouldn't reinstate the loan they wouldn't reinstate the loan mod once I got medical retirement. So what we did was rent out that house and we relocated to Arizona. We used the medical retirement as leverage to buy our mobile home in Arizona. that money that we got from the rent went to fight the case to keep the house, because back in 2009, AMBEC Insurance paid the loan. We have proof. We have the QSIP numbers that that loan was paid off, and we didn't actually owe on that loan. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court, never had due process of law, never had discovery. It was just dismissed by the judges. And just recently, that house was taken from me really illegally, because that tenant paid in full what was owed on the loan, and that money was returned to him, and he had the first right of refusal. They continued to take higher bids. I filed bankruptcy. That didn't stop the sale of the house. The law was on our side, but the judge was obviously corrupt and paid off and violated the bankruptcy stay right in front of me there in court. Didn't matter whether I filed bankruptcy or not. They created a fraudulent title for the new buyer, and the house was gone. That's $800,000 in equity. Well, shortly after that, I'm reeling from the loss, because we had been fighting a long time for that house. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I really think it's a manifestation of all the stress that I had been through in my life, including the military sexual trauma, and manifested physically. And now it's a healing crisis that I'm going through. Drinking lots of herb teas and like suma root and reishi mushroom and turkey tail mushroom, anti-cancerous, and cat's claw. It's like a mud tea. And just really taking care of myself right now, which is different because I'm so used to taking care of other people. I'm my own patient right now. And I was going to teach online because I did that for UCLA and Mount St. Mary's. I was teaching, I did psychiatric nursing clinical, and then I taught hospice online. And I was thinking I would be teaching. But when this hit me just this last month, I decided I won't teach yet. I'll put that on hold and just focus on healing. So that's where I am in my life right now.
So going back to when you were in the service, did you ever tell your leadership or any military friends about being raped?
It's interesting that you asked that. I had a friend, James McAllister, and I was at a party. I don't even remember this, but I was at a party and he said, our friend Sandy, I was upstairs with Sandy and I told her something. I don't know what I told her, but James said he knew that I had been traumatized. And he wrote a letter when I was applying for compensation from the military. He wrote the letter saying that he knew I had been traumatized. I didn't talk about it or tell anyone that I remember, but apparently I did talk to this friend of ours, Sandy, during a party.
And this was while you were still in the Air Force?
While I was still in the Air Force, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember things like the Poncho Barnes party back at Edwards Air Force Base, and I came back for that. It was kind of significant to me in a way because she was like a madam of Edwards Air Force Base. And there was some kind of connection there with being sexually assaulted and relating to a party commemorating the madam of Edwards Air Force Base. And I wore like a neon camouflage. Yeah, just I was so busy telling myself it didn't happen just to cope with it, to get on with life and try to be normal.
I remember you saying that you had a strong relationship with your mom. Did you ever tell her about it?
I did not.
Hmm.
I had an experience where I went out with someone later. This is in my 30s. I was in a bipolar support group. Not bipolar, it was PTSD. But I went to a bipolar support group because that's what I was labeled at the time.
Mhm.
And this guy came and invited me for dinner on his boat, and I was dessert. We were out on a boat. And, I went along with it because I didn't want to be knocked on the head and thrown overboard. So I told my mom about that, and her reaction was, I needed to be cleansed. There's a tradition in Judaism where you take a mikvah, which is a cleansing bath. And so she had me take a mikvah. I think it made her feel better. Didn't help me. I didn't feel better. And I don't think my parents could have handled that. My dad, like I said, was a Holocaust survivor. Her mom came over during the Cossack invasions in Russia, and her mom couldn't go back. She was only like 16 years old and couldn't go back because the village had been destroyed. So they were very poor growing up in New York, my mom, and just she couldn't have handled that information about my trauma.
Mhm.
I was always taking care of my mom, always. And my dad, being a good girl.
What about your brothers?
Well, I didn't tell Dennis until, the brother I live with, he moved in to help me take care of my mom back in 2009. My dad passed in 2005, my mom in 2009. My brother came to help me take care of her. And that week that he moved in, my mom passed from liver cancer very suddenly. We didn't know she had it. And I really didn't talk about it until it started being addressed in 2012. And I started wrapping my head around what happened to me. And I think I told him twice. I told him once, and then I remember telling him again. And it's like, you never told me that. But he had suspected something was going on because I had gained, like I said, over 100 pounds on the medication. I had tremors, and he knew there was something, he didn't know what had happened to me because they all saw the change. And I would go home over the holidays, Thanksgiving and Passover. And I was, tall and thin, 165 pounds, 5'9", my Air Force weight and height. And I had gone up to 255 pounds, over 100 pounds. And I'm back down to 235. I've been off the psych meds since June. I had like the weirdo virus. And, I guess they call it COVID. But it hit me, so I couldn't eat anything for like 2 weeks. And that meant I couldn't keep anything down, and that included psych meds. So I was off the meds, and then the whole hearing with losing the house. And I figured if I could get through that without psych meds, I didn't really need the psych meds. Mm-hmm. And the diagnosis of breast cancer. And I'm thinking, yeah, my body was pretty toxic. My liver and kidneys from 30 years of psych meds, the weight gain, not good health. So I won't do chemo simply because I think I wouldn't survive. My liver and kidneys for 30 years of psych meds have been really compromised. Mm-hmm. And I'm even off the steroid inhalers for the asthma and COPD because steroids suppress the immune system. And I really need my immune system to fight the cancer off right now. So I'm even off of that. So I'm off of most of the Western medicine. I think I might take albuterol occasionally when I go on a hike. That's just a bronchodilator. But I'm also on Ayurvedic herbs to help with the breathing and tumor shrinking herbs, Ayurvedic herbs, detox teas, rife frequencies. There's an iTierra wand, which I use, blue frequencies, blue light, that's supposed to shrink cancer cells. Just, you know, the goal of the chemo is to shrink down the tumor before surgery if the surgery is needed. So I don't, you know, I'm doing that with natural stuff. And then I'll see the breast surgeon October 5th. And depending on the genetic testing they did, depends on the kind of surgery. Like if I don't have the genes, it might just be a lumpectomy.
Mhm.
But if I have the genes, and the chances are pretty good that I might, because I have an Ashkenazi Jewish background. And the incidence of breast cancer is high with Ashkenazi European Jewish background. So I might have the gene, and then they would probably take the whole breast or even both.
Mhm.
If it's still there, I'm thinking what I'm doing, it not only shrink it, it'll go away. See, I'm very positive in my attitude. It's not cloudy, it's intermittently sunny.
Is there anything that you would want? There's a lot of high schoolers that read the Veteran Stories, so the Veterans History Project and Veterans Heritage Project. Is there anything that you would want a high schooler to know about service, or just anything in general that you would like them to learn from you?
Well, a couple things I've learned, and of course, you know, this was back in '87. First of all, Western medicine usually suppresses symptoms. And there's, you know, that's okay temporarily, but it doesn't help a person heal. You really have to get to the root of the problem to help a person heal. And that could be, you know, needing detoxing and addressing whatever the underlying issues are. And as a nurse, you know, I was trained under the Western medicine model, but I've come to realize as a healer, and I work with my brother, who's a doctor of Asian medicine now, to heal people. And it's not about suppressing symptoms. I'm in a good place now because I don't have to work. And if I need to cry during the day and release, it's okay. I can be crazy woman now, and it doesn't matter because I'm not working. I'm healing.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, I'm sure things have changed since 1987 in reporting rapes. You can go outside the chain of command. I think there's even an online where people can report, and then they can cross-reference and kind of find a perpetrator, you know, because several people have reported them. So I think things have changed in that respect, but in the respect of getting care, I think we have a way to go. I think, you know, the VA right now is, they're just pushing the chemotherapy. You know, they're calling me like, oh, you know, you need your chemotherapy appointment. It's gonna kill me. Ain't doing it. So I have to pay out of pocket for the treatments that I find are gonna heal me. So we have a way to go in the treatment for trauma and other things, cancer. My dad was a cancer researcher too. He was a biochemist after he survived the Holocaust, and he went to school and he became a biochemist. He did cancer research in immunology. What goes on with the immune system that the immune system can no longer keep the cancer cells in check, because we all have cancer cells, but the immune system keeps them in check. So Probably the toxicity that I had in my body with meds and environment, possibly toxins in the vaccines. I think nagalase suppresses macrophage functioning, and macrophages eat cancer cells. So my last vaccine was like 2006, and they were putting that in there, and I had like a adverse reaction. I had a anaphylactic reaction. So that really was scary. Combination, I don't know exactly what, but I think the money making industry and cancer and the vaccines and the COVID thing is really despicable and evil. You know, it's not about healing people or people being healthy, but I've looked into alternative things and integrative. We do LifeWave patches, which are crystals that go on acupuncture meridians. And as the crystals melt, they put out a specific frequency into the acupuncture meridians, enhance certain functions of the body. One of the patches tells your body to make more glutathione, which is a master antioxidant, which is anti-aging, code word for anti-cancer, and Eon, which tells your body to increase the Brzezinski peptide, which is anti-neoplastic. So I wear those patches all the time, right in the area where the tumor is. Yeah. And, you know, just always open to essential oils. I use frankincense into the area, myrtle. They're both anti-cancer. And we have the knowledge out there. You just have to look for it. So when they are looking at, you know, working in the healthcare field, just know that, you know, it's a big money making industry, and insurance companies kind of guide treatment, what they will and won't pay for. And it's not always the best thing for the patient. If the patient's wanting to heal, not just suppress symptoms. So that's what I would, you know, tell a high school student, you know, who was thinking of anything related to health, healthcare, even being for their own health.
I'm just curious, why did you want to be interviewed?
I am a teacher. You know, I love teaching nursing students, and I have hope for the future that something I have to say will help them navigate their path for a better future, for an enlightened future, for a future where people can be healthy and happy. And as a nurse, that's what I'm interested in, is people's health, living healthy lives. Kind of scares me that sometimes, you know, I see younger nurses, and, you know, I'm going in for my own medical issues. Some of the things that have been said to me, I'm like, wow, I would never pass you in my nursing class. Because you obviously not just don't have compassion, but no understanding of what someone else might be going through. And you're in nursing? Really? You know, I think it makes us better nurses when we have our own stuff that we're dealing with, and we really are healing from it. We don't have to be perfect, but at least compassionate. So that's why I wanted to be interviewed, so I would have some hope that what I have to say would be valuable to making a better future. And I hope it has.
Did you ever join any veterans organizations after you got
I
out
just
of
got back from a veterans breakfast. I
Okay.
kind of went to the veterans breakfast to desensitize myself from being around men. They're all a bunch of old men, Vietnam vets, couple Korean vets, old men. They're pretty harmless. And I found friends, they care about me. They call me sis. And I have talked about military sexual trauma to them because it does happen to men too, at a much lower rate, but it does happen. And I think there's even more shame and stigma when you're a man dealing with those issues. So I have talked about it. It's on YouTube, on my channel on YouTube. But other veterans organizations, I go for treatment at the VA here in Prescott. I'm in the OASIS program. They didn't have a military sexual trauma program when I came here, not like they did in West Los Angeles. But I've been advocating for myself and getting what I need from the system, whatever they're able to provide.
You ever married or had any kids or anything?
Nope.
No? Okay.
No, there was a possibility back in college. I dated a guy named Bruce and he wanted to marry me, but I decided to go into the Air Force. Yeah. Never able to have a relationship with a man. And it's not that I'm gay. I was just traumatized.
Is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't covered yet so far in the interview?
Not that I can think of. Did all the questions you have there get answered?
I don't necessarily have a list
Okay.
that we stick to because everybody's story and everybody's experiences are different. So I don't like to just like go down the line, so to speak, because everybody's different. So I guess I was curious about you spoke about your brothers and your mom. What was your relationship like with your dad?
He was a little unavailable emotionally. It's kind of like a big kid. He got silly. He got angry. You just avoided the hell out of him. I mean, you just went, he'd give you a sign. He'd start rubbing his head and you're just like, clear, get out of here. Yeah. But we used to go to Columbia Park when I was a kid and feed the ducks. My mom would give me breadcrumbs and she'd say, quack-a-dack-a-dack, here comes Heidi with a snack. And my dad and I would go to the park. There was like an outdoor stage and we would like put on a performance for an invisible audience. We had fun together. And he was there. There's a lot of fathers that just aren't there, abandon the kids. My dad was there. He provided for us.
In your book, you talked quite a bit about acting and how much you were involved in that. Are you still involved in any kind of acting today?
I am. I do scripture, theater. We write plays based on scripture. Our play that we're working on right now is The Women Who Follow Jesus. And I will be playing the Samaritan woman he meets at the well. That's who I'll be playing. We're still actually writing the script, but in a while we'll send out a link for a live performance. And if you want to be on the email, I can put you on the email for that. And also a link for the YouTube replay. But we have plays on YouTube. We have Ruth was the last one. I played the narrator and I wrote all of it in poetry.
Is this through a church or an organization?
Gateways Church back in Los Angeles. It kind of sponsors it, yeah, but anyone could really be in it if they wanted to, and it's on Zoom. It's Zoom theater. It's kind of a new medium, yeah. So the people I'm performing with one's in Egypt, one's in, the rest are in Los Angeles, one's out here in Arizona. Yeah, it's kind of cool because you can be
That's
anywhere
awesome.
and be performing in Zoom theater. But there's some like little challenges, like if the audience members have to be on mute. You get someone sneezing in the middle of a production and they're not on mute, they're center stage.
That's funny. Has it always been on Zoom? Or is that an
Your
effect of
theater was
COVID?
not always on Zoom. It started out before COVID in
Okay.
the church. And then when I moved, COVID hadn't started yet. I was actually online at the table helping them write the script.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit and everyone went on Zoom. So I kind of started it.
That's awesome. I've never heard of a Zoom theater before.
Yeah, it's kind of
that's cool.
cool. And
Yeah,
we're
that's
keeping
so
it
neat.
even after COVID. We're keeping it just because there's so many of us that are not in the LA area.
Mhm.
And it's
Are they
fun.
all like biblical plays or?
Everything we write is based on scripture. Yes. Either the Old Testament or the New Testament. Yeah, we did the Passover story and Ruth. Those were Old Testament. Now we're doing a New Testament story.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's
Awesome.
through the eyes of the women who followed Jesus. So that's kind of a different perspective.
So it's a women's only group.
It's not.
Oh,
We have a
okay.
few men. I mean, there's got to be someone that plays Jesus, right?
Fair, fair.
But I did play King Herod in one of the scenes. I was King Herod and I had my beard.
Nice.
But you can do makeup on Zoom. You can actually do makeup and stuff on Zoom.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, it moves with your face and everything. You put on lipstick virtually, and it's like pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. One more question I thought about. Once you got out of the service, how did you feel? Did you feel relieved? Did you feel happy?
I think I was angry.
You're
Very
angry?
angry. I had a lot of anger. I think that's what manifested as cancer. Anger. Didn't know what to do with the anger. Very angry. Because my fantasies about being a flight nurse were just dashed, and I felt like I wasn't understood, but then how could they understand me? I couldn't articulate what happened. So yeah. And then to be judged, well, you have a pre-existing condition. And I tried to get my DD 214 changed to the truth, and they won't change it. Substandard performance of duty. Never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, have to live with that on my DD 214. But
Did you go back to school then after you got out of the military?
I already had my bachelor's. I did go back to school in 2003, 2001 to 2003. I got my master's in nursing administration and nursing education. It was a double master's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Education and administration. Okay.
In nursing, yeah. And I tried to get into administration. I applied for like 7 different nurse management positions. I'm not politically correct, so never made it at the VA. And I they probably wanted to get rid of me. I don't know.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share?
That I can think of. I have a question for you. So I know the Heritage program, they interview veterans and they write their story. So my question is, do you have enough understanding and information now to do what you need to do for the Heritage Project?
I do.
You do? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And if it's okay with you, if I have any gaps, are you okay with me either calling you or referencing your book? Would that be
Absolutely.
okay? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think that yeah, this has been great. If there's anything else that you can think of that you'd like me to articulate in the narrative, please feel free to just give me a call, let me know. Um, I will work on this and have this back to you. Our usual timeline is within 3 weeks, but hopefully I'll have it back to you before then. Um, and then so we'll get your eyes on it, make sure that you like how it's written, it's correct, it's there. We are writing these to highlight and honor your story. And so please feel free to provide any recommendations, edits, whatever, so we can have it exactly how you want it. And then from there, we will publish it into this year's book. Have you seen our book before?
No, I haven't.
No, you haven't? Here, let me go grab one because it's
Okay.
pretty cool. Here, you
I'm
want
going to end the recording.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.